Good morning. Welcome to the regular BCC meeting for September 25th, 2017. This year's passing fast. Please silence your phones. And Pastor Jeremy Lewis from Southwide Baptist Church, would you come to the podium, please? And would everyone else stand for the invocation and the pledge?
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we are grateful today that you've given us life and breath. You've given us another day to live. You've provided food and shelter and clothing, and you've blessed us with family and friends and privileged us with the great honor and joy of living and leading Walton County. Father, I thank you that these men and women have given their lives so graciously and committed themselves to serving the county. They sacrificed time with their families so that others might live fuller lives. God, they're a gift, and I thank you for them. And I pray that you would bless them today. Give them wisdom as they lead. Today, hard tasks and conversations will come their way. And I pray that you'll give them strength and courage to act and speak in ways that honor you as Lord. Lord, I pray for their families today. Being in the public eye is never for the faint of heart. And your word says that you will keep those in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. And so I pray that today your peace, which surpasses all understanding, will guard and protect the families of these faithful servants. Now, Father, we do pray and acknowledge that we live in a great county. But we are also keenly aware that throughout our county there are many needs, from broken homes to homeless children to poverty to alcoholism and addiction and loneliness, and even to the care of our elderly. Father, the needs are many, and even right here in this very room there are many needs. Your word says, though, that without you we can do nothing. You are only hope, and the only hope for Walton County. And so today, we acknowledge that you paid the price for the forgiveness of our sins, for our healing and our restoration to you, by shedding your blood in our place. You rose from the dead, and today you are the Lord of Lords, seated on the throne as our King. And so today we commit our lives to you in this county, and we ask that you would grant that your will would be done in our lives, and that you might be glorified in Walton County. And we ask all of these things in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome Boots McCormick, City Council of Freeport. Thank you, Boots, for coming, and look forward to working you with the Triumph Funds.
I think
Amanda Green. I don't even know if I know you yet. Hey, Amanda, great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming. We officially call the meeting to order. Are there any additions and deletions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, ma'am. Under admin, we need to add the appointments to the Triumph Committee and a appointment to the Restore Committee.
Do we have?
Oh, and Commissioner Jones, I would like to cancel the executive session in the Leroy Holden case also.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda with additions and just additions?
Second.
I have a motion second. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any public comments? This is the time that you can speak. If you need to leave early, this is the time that we set aside for you to speak. We'll talk about each agenda item as it comes forth. Do we have any public comments at this time? I see none. Any items to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Commissioner Chapman, your recusal.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, acknowledge my conflict of interest with waste management. I've filed the necessary form with the clerk, and I will abstain from the vote.
Do I have a motion to approve the EALs, the waste management EALs?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. As we added on, the first item we'll deal with is the Triumph Committee. We would need a motion to appoint the following members from the City of Freeport, Mayor Russ Barley; from the City of Paxton, Mayor Hayward Thomas; and from the City of Defuniak, Danny Lucas, who is their incoming city manager. And we have confirmation from those municipalities that those are the ones they wish to appoint. And Commissioner Jones' appointee is Juliet Milam from Gulf Power. So one motion would appoint all four of those to the Triumph Committee.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any other discussion? Discussion from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Then on the Restore Committee, would entertain a motion to appoint one individual to replace Dennis Peters, who was unable to continue serving. And I believe he was a South Walton business individual. So if you have someone you'd like to fill that slot with, now would be appropriate time for a motion.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Amy Stoles.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other nominees?
I nominate Dave Roshkob.
Okay, so do we have some paper, Ms. Hinote, so we can vote on these?
The last name was Doles, D-O-L-E-S.
Stoles, S-T-O-Y-L-E-S.
S-T-O-Y, okay. You know, hearing is the first thing to go. Bill Roshkob, I'm just gonna put
We
on.
have a motion and a second for Amy, and then, so how do we need to fix that?
I guess since we have two nominations, I guess if the commissioners wanted to make a motion to have a vote on those two nominations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So if you would just write Amy Stoles or Dave Roshkob.
Do you want to just, the
And-
one that
Just the
we're
one.
voting for?
Yes, ma'am.
And not both of them?
No, just the one you're voting for.
And also put your name on the list, because we'll have to make those public. Pass them to you. Yes, sir.
We're going to give the clerk just a moment to tally those and announce.
Where's Rick? We want to welcome Rick back. He's say a new daddy again.
Doesn't look like he's had much sleep, but this time will pass. You go from the babies till they stay out late at night, and you sit up waiting on them, so you never sleep.
Amen.
In a vote for 3 votes, in a vote, 3 votes to Amy Stoles, 2 votes to Dave Roshkob, Commissioner Commander, Dave Roshkob, Commissioner Chapman, Amy Stoles, Commissioner Jones, Amy Stoles, Commissioner Nipper, David Roshkob, and Tony Anderson, Amy Stoles.
Okay, so we have a motion for Amy Stoles already, and a second. Any other discussion? Discussion from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is we have Walter Bowers from the Florida Forest Service for a presentation of their 2016-17 Commissioners Report. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
I'd like to introduce Thomas Moss. He is the Walton County Forester. He's also the Holmes County Forester. He's actually covering both counties at this time. As y'all know, the Commissioner's Report we present has basically a two-part summary: fire control and county operating plan through emergency procedures, and then the actual forest management portion of the Commissioner's Report. All y'all did receive the report electronically, correct? Okay. I'll discuss or entertain any questions as far as the fire control portion of it or the county operating plan, and then Thomas, I'll refer to him to present the actual management portion of the County Commissioner's Report. Just before I even get mentioned into anything, does anybody looked at it have any questions right off the bat?
I was just wondering what season of the year you do the burns. Do you do them year-round, or do you pick is there some season that's better to burn?
When it comes to the actual lands that are managed by the Florida Forest Service, we try to do a year-round management goal. Typically, though, through weather fronts and dealing with wildfires or whatever their issues, our main burning season, you would say, would be usually around October to about March. And that goes for us and for the majority of the landowners in Walton County, whether it be site prep for their timber programs or pasture management. Typically, we get better weather patterns, we get better conditions for them to conduct burning in the safest manner. So usually we're about to start into it, probably about the first time we get a good cold front come through. Folks are going to go to smelling more smoke, and then it'll last probably until about March, as long as we have a normal, per se, winter.
Right. And if someone wants to burn trash, they need to call y'all to get a permit?
If there's no permit required to burn yard waste or yard trash by the state of Florida, there are setbacks that a landowner must meet, but you do not have to have a permit for that. The setbacks and the correct way by Florida statutes, they can call us. We'll be glad to give the landowner the information they need to know where to set that up at. That is as long as their pile doesn't exceed 8 foot in diameter. So you can burn anything in an 8-foot diameter pile with proper setbacks, and you don't have to call us for a permit. Anything other than that is considered a different situation, and you have to call for a permit.
Right. I know when I went on the tour, there was you were doing some renovations down at Eastern Lake. Have y'all added more park sites there, or what have you done since I left?
We have pretty much, we finished all the pads, the road work in there. We have a few little knick-knacky things to complete. The major issue we're having right now is we're in the process of going through and getting an actual bathhouse installed. Once that is installed, hopefully sometime this fall, that'll be taken care of, and we should be looking at opening that site up as soon as that renovation's as soon as the installation of a new bathhouse will be complete.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
And just to cover the point of the fact, this particular year, about the only thing that we had any different than the plans that we've dealt with in the past, of course, it goes through here and explains the equipment that we have in the county, the locations of it in the county, the actual number of wildfires we had in the county, along with the actual total. We had 47 wildfires in the county. Had quite a busy year, had a lot of county resources sent to South Florida and Central Florida for wildfire issues, but I had a fairly busy spring compared to what we've had the last 4 or 5 years. But pretty much the equipment that we have is still located in the same locations: 2 pieces of apparatus in the Funiac Springs area, 3 pieces of apparatus located in the Washington State Forest, along with personnel. We did we did basically the operating plan that we do every year. With the Sheriff's Department taking over the North Walton County Fire Rescue, we did enter in with them as far as an operating agreement, same basic agreement we've always had, just entered in with new faces to the positions. But by all means, y'all all have my contact information. If there's anything in this fire report plan, or you'd like to have some one-on-one time to discuss anything, please feel free to contact me. And if there's no more questions about the fire control, I'll turn it over to Thomas for the forest management.
Yes, I'm Thomas Moss, as he introduced. Any questions on the management?
I don't know which one of you could address this question, but do y'all still go in the schools to do your fire education? Good, good. That was always a good program when I was there.
Yes, all you got to do is contact one of our offices. Usually that's set up where there's one particular ranger that will handle that. But if you'll contact the Argyle office or the Point Washington office, that'll...
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome aboard, Thomas. Thank you. Thank you, Walter.
Y'all have a good day.
Thanks. Commissioners, next item is presentation from Dr. Devin Stevenson, President of Northwest Florida State College, on their Simulation City project.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Sherwood. I'm actually Dean of Career and Technical Education at Northwest Florida State College. Dr. Stevenson sends his regrets. He's actually traveling today, as it turned out, so he wasn't able to make the meeting. Shane Abbott is a member of our Board of Trustees, apparently serving as my assistant today, so it's kind of nice of him.
Some assistance, my bad.
Certainly want to thank you for this opportunity. We're all looking at Triumph funding opportunities. The college is no different. In your packets, we're basically looking at three different things, three different projects, one of them being in Defuniax, and that's Defuniax Springs, which is the program that we want to present. So as a result of that, we want to discuss why we're doing this, how we're doing it, and all those other neat things with you really quick. First of all, why we're doing it. One of the things I get as a career and technical ed dean is there's a couple different things. One is our workforce is aging. We don't have workers. The other is we don't have anybody even applying for it, young or old. So as a result, when we started looking at what our opportunities were, and Okaloosa Gas came to us and said, we don't know who's running our company in 5 years. Literally, that's what they told us. We don't know. Once we started talking with them, we started proposing some different kind of training programs. Word got out, and you'll see on this first slide, all the different organizations started contacting us. Start saying, you know what are you guys doing? What are you proposing? And we started getting a real common theme coming from all the utilities saying, we don't know who's going to be running our infrastructure. So we're proposing this simulated city project at the Defuniac campus. As we looked at a location, a simulated city is just that. We're looking at roads, infrastructure, water, sewer, the whole thing. Of course, that's going to take land. The college does own approximately 100 acres at the Defuniac campus, so it made a perfect location. The other thing is, where is the population moving in our two counties? It's moving north. And what the college, of course, is looking for opportunities to provide more and more programming to the north residents. So as a result, they pointed us directly to the Defuniac campus and said, that's really the site that we should be looking at. As you look at the next choice, there's a list of programs that we're looking at. Those are the programs that we are going to initiate the program with. There are going to be many more that are going to come after that. But as you look at that, it's a wide range of programming from construction trades, utility trades, unmanned vehicle trade. There's a lot of different options that we're looking at to present there. As I said, the project is going to be a widespread. We're looking at houses, commercial buildings. As I said, the infrastructure. One of the large opportunities that we see was water treatment. The water treatment utilities are really worried about where their workforce is coming from. So as far as south as St. Petersburg contacted us, said, what are you guys doing? We told him what we're doing, and he said, I'm in because I have 5 guys that maintain my entire system, and they blackmail me, for lack of a better term, they blackmail me every year for a raise because he knows I don't have anybody to replace them. So they come in, demand a raise, I give it to them because it's going to happen because I don't have anybody standing behind them to replace them. So we've got lots and lots of interest as we start to look at what those opportunities are. As you look at the list of structures and stuff, we're looking at houses. Everybody's seen tiny houses on TV. Tiny houses so that we can do the infrastructure hookups and all those other issues. Of course, a laboratory building for the instruction and heavy equipment training, which is a requirement for all the utilities. We are going to be holding a public information session Bill Williams and Bill Infeld have both responded that they will be there on behalf of the county. But we are going to be holding that on October the 18th, 10 to 12 o'clock, our last one prior to completing our Triumph funding application. So, of course, if anybody is certainly interested, we would be more than pleased to have you there. And at this time, any questions I can answer?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yes, sir.
This is a project apparently for the FUNIAC, yet you're having your meeting in Niceville. Why not have it up here where it's going to have the most influence or impact?
It was primarily because of the lack of facility. We don't have a facility large enough. We actually have about 50 people coming to it in our campus center. We don't have a conference center that will hold those kinds of numbers. That was why. Okay. And that was strictly the reason why, because we originally planned on having it up here, but as we started seeing the response coming in, so we anticipate 50 plus folks being there, and we just didn't have the facility here to do that. That was why.
Any other questions?
So.
Sir, would you repeat your name one more time?
Dennis Sherwood.
Would you spell it, please, sir?
Sherwood, just like the forest.
Sherwood.
Yep.
And Dennis is going to represent us on the Triumph Board. Congratulations
Yes.
on that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We like your assistant. Thanks.
You did a great job. Commissioner, the next item is a request from Gina Gilmore, representing Walton County 4-H. Is Ms. Gilmore? Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Walton County 4-H has grown exponentially in the less than 3 years that I have been here. So I'm Jenna Gilmore, and this is the County Extension Director, Mike, who is here supporting the growth of 4-H. So in order for us to continue to grow, a lot of our youth have outgrown our current facility. So I don't know if many of you have seen the Extension office, but we're on maybe a half acre, and we have less than that of usable ground for us to do demonstration gardens or anything ag-related for our kids to expand and master their projects. So thanks to Farm Bureau, they have leased land that borders the Extension office and the fairgrounds in order for us to hopefully build an arena and some teaching labs there so that our agriculture-based clubs can expand in their efforts. Like, for instance, our horse club has qualified for the state horse show for the last 2 years, but they've been unable to attend that show for funding reasons, and also they don't have a facility to practice. And as they grow into speed events like barrel racing and that sort of thing, they really need a safe and larger facility. Now the fair also donates their arena to us, but their covered arena portion is just not suitable for what we currently need. The land that Farm Bureau has given us is underdeveloped, so it's just raw a wooded lot. And we need the expertise of all community entities, if possible, as far as construction and engineering and public works, in order to help us develop this land properly and safely for our youth to be able to use that. Do you want to add anything?
Some of you might remember that east of town by Argyle years ago, we had a arena out there, and then the landowner sold it, and so a lot of the stuff was taken up to Brown Pit and stored. We don't know if it's still there, but there's some panels and stuff we hope to use, but we really need the county to work with us on getting this project underway. There's probably only, 3 acres we're estimating usable out of that land. It's on Allen Road, right close to our office.
So I guess we need to start with maybe providing an engineer if we could, and then I'm not quite sure I understand the direction after that. You want to do a parking lot?
I would suggest, Commissioner, that if you'd give us direction and permission, that we'll have staff meet with Ms. Gilmore and Mr. Goodchild and just see what the needs are and kind of compile a list of what we may be able to help with, and then come back with some a little better direction of what areas we may be able to assist in. But let's get the ball rolling down that path so we can bring you some better information.
Absolutely. We definitely want to help. I see what you do at the Extension office daily and with young people, and we're excited about maybe getting FHA at Freeport now. And so any way we can help, we certainly want to. So, yes, I would be willing to give you direction to do that.
Okay. we'll get our public works folks, some of our engineering folks together, and we'll look at, the land and see exactly what the challenges may be and where we can assist.
And we're all coming to the fair, I hope.
Yes, absolutely. 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Remind us again what 4-H stands for. I know one is home and health.
So the 4-H's are head, heart, hands, and health. And our slogan is to learn by doing, and then we always want to make the best better. So we're in positive youth development for the county, all the way from Paxton, all the way down to the south end. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What you do.
thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is a request to give you an update and request some direction on the renewal of the Freeport Business Park lease agreements, and see which direction you would like to go. There are currently three leases that encompass 4 units. Those all expire within the next 12 months. We have one, the Port Ministries of Freeport, which is in Building B, which is the west building, that would like to relocate to Building A, which would be the east building in Unit 2. If you recall, Unit 1 and Unit 2 does not have a dividing wall. We do not own Unit 1, but we do own Unit 2. So we think it would probably be reasonable to try to renegotiate with the Port Ministries to move them into Unit 2 and let them work a lease agreement with Unit 1. We do think they would probably request an extension. Their lease is up in March of next year, March 31st. But that would free up everything we own in the western building. Now, the other 2 leases are in the east building, one with a expiration date of 6/30/2018 and the other one of 8/31/2018. So the question that we're just asking for direction is, would you like us to try to negotiate extending those leases? They're generating about $4,000 a month in rent. We don't think we're going to need those spaces within the next 2 or 3 years, but if we did renegotiate, we would probably look for some out clause in 60 or 90 days that would allow us to terminate if we needed to. We would think that would be applicable except for the Port Ministries, which I would think would ask for probably at least a 3-year to give them an opportunity to amortize their cost. So if you're not interested in having any tenants in that building and generating any revenue, that's fine. If you'd like us to see where we can go with negotiating with them to continue a revenue stream, assuming it's not going to impact our ability to utilize the facilities, we would bring you back some recommendations at a later date.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
I think we need to let staff move to the next step.
I would like to see it investigated just to give us some options and see. I don't anticipate using all of those buildings now. It might, be some revenue generating, but
Yeah, and that was our thought, is that, we believe we can relocate the Port Ministries, renegotiate the other leases with some terms that are favorable, keep a revenue stream going and not impact our ability to use the buildings. But we'd certainly bring that back to your approval if that was a consensus of the board that we would go down that path.
I'm just excited to get planning in Freeport and get that all under one roof. So go ahead. Who was going to say something?
I said it sounds like a appropriate plan at this time, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm willing to put on a pair of blue jeans and help put up walls and do whatever it takes to get planning. And don't look.
I don't commit me to that, but
You'll
but
watch.
You know what?
You'll supervise.
I'm a good delegator. Eddie can tell you. Any other discussion?
The only thing I'd like to state is that as we move forward, and we don't really need the space at this time, the entire space, to keep in mind that we may need it maybe 2 years from now or maybe 3, and to have some type of understanding with the ones that are in there that there's a possibility their lease could go away and have to do something different.
Well, and that's kind of where we are today. Within, I think it's August of next year, maybe the last one, or June. Those current leases expire. So in order for them to continue beyond that, there's going to have to be a renegotiation. We'll look for those terms and conditions in that renegotiated lease.
Could there be a shortening of the lease time? These are 3 years. Could we shorten it to 2 years, and every 2 years? Would that give us
Certainly.
some latitude?
Yes, ma'am.
I can surely see the planning department ending with as much development as we're doing, growing long-term planner or whatever,
Right.
whatever's needed.
Okay.
All right, so you have direction?
Yes, ma'am. Next item is regarding the Brandon Oaks septic sewer discussion that's been ongoing. This board met in a joint meeting with the City Council of Freeport last week, had a very productive meeting, I believe. And based on that discussion, we're going to lay out one option for you today. In discussions with each of you or some of you during the time of reviewing this, there were some other thoughts that were thrown out. So I'll go over what we've laid out, but it's certainly up to this board to determine whether this is the direction you want to go or you prefer going another direction. But the option that we would recommend at this point is the county would authorize the city to send a letter to those in Brandon Oaks subdivision advising of the health issue and environmental issues and require mandatory hookup to the sewer system. Use the money in the developer's escrow account, which is approximately $145,000, to go toward the down payment of approximately $2,686 for each home for the 54 homes identified in the subdivision that need to be converted. That the remaining costs associated with installation be financed by the city over a period of 10 years at 0% interest, which apparently is a practice already utilized by the city. And that the 14 failing or failed septic tanks, and that number may be 12 now, but the 12 or 14 systems be the first ones to be converted to the sewer, and that be done as soon as possible after the city and county have formulated any ordinances necessary to accommodate these requirements, and to continue over the coming months to get the remaining homes connected to the sewer. To avoid an extended delay, a time limit of 18 months should be in place to keep this project moving. So that was some of the things that were discussed at the joint meeting. Again, that's one idea. There may be others that you want to discuss and decide what direction we'd go at this time.
I tend to agree with everything on here. My concern, a time limit of 18 months, I think that's probably fine for all of them but the 14. But they need to be done yesterday. So I'm fine with the 18 months, but somehow with the health department, and legally I don't know, but with the health department saying they're failing their health issue, that certainly we can move faster than 18 months.
Well, I think the 18 months was to keep the entire project moving, and within 18 months, the 52, 54, whatever it turns out to be, would be all hooked up. Okay. Now, if we need to address the 14 individually in this, we can state that they'd be hooked up within 60 days. I don't know if that's unreasonable or not, but 60 days after the formulation of any ordinances that may be necessary to make this happen. So if we want to just add that caveat, I got no grief with that.
I'd like to see the status of each property. I would like to know if it's bank-owned, if it's abandoned. I'd like to know really what we're dealing with, and then my idea was to deal with the 12, 14, or whatever that is, and then go out and send the letter out. So then after the letter goes out, then we know how many are willing to pay for their own way. But I'm fine with this. I agree with Commissioner Commander. We need to move forward. We dealt with this long enough, and I do apologize for not being at the meeting. I had a family emergency, so I hate missing it, though. But
And I think they should be sent out certified mail, which I'm assuming you would do anyway, but, so that if they're returned to us, then...
Well, this
Commissioner Chapman, I'm sorry. I was going to state, I believe at the workshop we had, the city said the earliest they could hook up the 14 failing systems was 90 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, we could make that part of this offer, I guess you
I
call
think
it.
so. Yes, sir. I
90
think that
days
should
on
be
the
fair.
first 14.
Yes, sir.
And I think there's two letters that are appropriate here. One is advising everybody, because I think by the franchise agreement, it states that you must notify the people there initially that there is sewer available. I don't know that's ever been accomplished, so I think we need to go with that, because it may end up that some of these 50-something may decide to just go ahead and hook up initially on their own. But either way, we got to get them all hooked up. So maybe there's the first letter advising, then the second letter is the mandatory letter that comes in behind it saying you have to because of the health and environmental concerns.
Commissioners, if this is the direction you wish to go, what we would recommend would be a motion with whatever changes you wish, and then we would send this as a proposal to the City of Freeport, seeking their agreement to move forward under these terms and conditions.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion then that we send the letter, ask the chair to sign the letter going to the City of Freeport, outlining 1 through 4 that's in the staff report, along with an addition that the 14 failed or failing, or it may be 12, whatever it turns out to be completed within 90 days of the.
I'll second that for discussion, but if I remember correctly, didn't one of the city council people tell us that they didn't think they should write the letter, that we should? Am I remembering that wrong?
Commissioner Commander, I believe they were stating that under the franchise agreement, they have to have our authority before they send out that
So
letter.
we need to send the city a letter saying you have the authority.
And
Yes,
I think,
ma'am, and we can
I think
include
this would serve in that capacity, would it not? Yes.
And somewhere in here, I really would like the status of each parcel, so we know exactly what we're dealing with. I'm not so much about helping the bank or abandoned property. Do we need to fix, I don't know. So
And I don't even know if I've seen a list of the 14 or 12 that are abandoned, or not abandoned, that have been breached. I mean,
We'll get
it's
that.
kind of conceptually a little bit hard to understand the whole project. And I'm assuming that we're going to have our engineers work with the Brandon Oaks project, because I think downstream of that goes back into our franchise. Am I right? Past these? Just making sure that downstream of Brandon Oaks, we're still
Commissioner Nimber, I think our engineers have looked into that, and they've addressed concerns that they've had about that.
And I prefer, by the way, tooting our own horn, I am grateful to our staff that was at that meeting the other day. They had all the answers to the questions, and were very professional, and I appreciate their, them being there. So the only other one thing that I would ask is, okay, so some of these are bank owned. Can we force the bank owned properties to hook on just like we could a private individual?
Well,
Yes,
I would
ma'am.
think so.
And what about the ones that are abandoned that are just
It would still, that's something, if we want
a
to have
title owner somewhere out there that we could?
Right, it would just be the property owner who's on the hook, whether that's the bank or an LLC or a private individual.
Okay. Do we have any more commission before I turn it over to the audience? Commission comments? Seeing none, David Kramer, would you like anyone else come up after him, please? State your name, spell your last name.
Good to see you, Mr. Kramer.
Long time no see. David Kramer, for the record, K-R-A-M-E-R. In the last 12 months, I've sold 2 properties. I'm also a licensed Florida real estate broker. Sold 2 properties in the Brandon Oaks subdivision. I'm here representing one of those owners. One of those owners, neither of those 2 owners have septic, and we think that this is a very good idea moving forward for the thing. However, one of the 2 owners that I represent is a firefighter, a very young firefighter. He's only 23 years old, and they have 3 children. So I would ask you, in your options for financing, instead of just the flat 10-year thing, they're a one-income family with 3 children. So if it's possible to have, for the emergency ordinance that you hope to pass, if it's a possibility to have financing for those individuals who would qualify for something of a financial hardship, I certainly would see that you appreciate it and look into it. Thank you.
David, I think you would probably need to talk to the city of Freeport about that, if I'm not
I'd be
mistaken.
happy to.
And-
I didn't
and
know if this
because
was the
it's their
proper venue for it.
franchise, and we can't set their rules, but I don't disagree with you.
Yes, the firefighter couldn't be here. He was on duty today, and asked me, because I sold him the house, if I'd come, and just brought it before you, and I'll be happy to bring it to the city of Freeport.
Thank you, David.
Would anyone else like to speak to this?
I may be mistaken, but doesn't regional finance theirs for like 30 years? I mean, I realize the city doesn't have the resources that regional does, but isn't it 30 years?
Hi, I'm Scott DeCandia. I live at 281 Bay Grove.
Would you spell your last name for us, please, sir?
DeCandia, D-E, capital C-A-N-D-I-A.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'd have never gotten that one.
And I live at 281 Bay Grove Road. And my question, and I'll make it, I think I have to, make it quick, is why are you bending over backwards to fix Brandon Oaks when there are 4 or 5 of us that were directly impacted by that inept system they put back there? I think I have I believe I know the answer. It's probably a health issue because our property is, has been tested and, has E. coli. So I'm sure that's what the urgency is. But there's 4 or 5 of us that were originally there that are being ignored. And I'd like to know why. You were told, I'm sure, it's been a while, and I've heard, about the fixes for years. I would like to see it happen before I die. I'd like to have my backyard back. When it was a farm back there, it was a very nice backyard with a pool and jungle gyms, and now it's a swamp. And when you try to take the water test, we get tadpoles, okay? That's an indication of a swamp. So that's my first question. And my next one, real quick, why are these sewage tap fees so expensive? This is Florida. You got sandy soil, I could not figure that one out. And when I did look up to see what a grinder, a standard residential grinder pump was, on the high end, they were about $1,000. So that I'd like to know about $8,500. That's kind of stiff.
Mr. DeCambia, you're absolutely right. It is a health issue.
Yeah.
The drainage situation, we're trying to work on fixing that. The tap fees and impact fees, that has nothing to do with us. We're not the franchise holder.
Okay.
So that would be a question to ask the city of Freeport.
Well, as far as the drainage, I've been hearing about drainage for a long time. And, water runs downhill. And when Brandon Oaks was built, they raised the property behind us about 5 feet. If you didn't see that one coming, I don't know how that whole thing was passed, but it should have been looked at.
And neither do I.
Okay,
That's
well,
before our time.
water does run downhill.
All right.
Thank you.
Greg or Anna, one of y'all come up and answer his question about the
I've
drainage.
spoken to Greg over the past 4 years, and
Mr.
still
DeCandia,
flooded.
I believe we have a restore project that we just got approved. I know we were working diligently to get the Corps of Engineers to give us a permit so we could do the stormwater. Commissioner Commander, you want to add something to that? Or you're the restore coordinator. Do you remember that project?
No, not right. Yeah, I know what
Okay.
you're talking about. Not
Melinda,
enough to-
are you here?
Billy's here somewhere, isn't he?
Okay.
I think Greg's aware of the restore project
Okay.
as
Yeah.
well.
All
Okay,
right.
well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I wanted to add one thing. The initial money that we're using here is not taxpayer money. It's the developer's money. That developed Brandon Oaks to hook these on. So it's not like we're using taxpayer dollars. They went in, they put into a fund, and of course they went defunct. But that money's been sitting there.
Well, you see, the question is, they're being addressed first, yet they, and, I have minutes from the old meetings before that whole development was built. They're affecting us. And you would think, okay, and there's only 4 or 5 of us, but we are being affected. And from there, sewage is coming my way. So
We can cure their problem, then hopefully that will cure your problem. And
you
as
would
well
think
as
that
us.
you would think the 4 or 5 of us would be higher on the list,
Yeah.
since it was that caused our problem.
And we are working simultaneously now, and Greg will tell us about the project that we just got approved from Restore.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
for your
Thank you
time.
very much.
For the record, Greg Graham, Public Works. I'm very familiar with Mr. DeCandia and also Mr. Rogers, who's in the back also. I think we are here today because of listening to input from the neighbors. And we're taking a two-phase approach to try to address issues in the neighborhood. One, the board is looking at getting the 52 people off septic. That's why we're here today. The other thing is we're looking at a drainage improvement project to help dry up the area. I think the primary issue with the Brandon Oaks is the stormwater system they have isn't conducive to septic systems, and that was probably a fundamental design flaw originally. But we're with the board's support, we're here today to address those issues that Mr. DeCandia spoke to and Mr. Rogers has brought to our attention in the past. So, just want to correct one thing I heard earlier, that the system downstream of Brandon Oaks is not a county system. The only system that we have that we're responsible for at the county level is in Mossy Head with our wastewater treatment plant and infrastructure. But that particular area is all City of Freeport franchise area. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We're ready to go on the Restore project. The Corps, we've got our permits from the Corps.
The multi-use implementation plan has been approved through the Treasury, and now it's my understanding, talking with Melinda Gates, that we have to take that specific project and submit it to the agency. So
that should be
I
submitted
heard
within a week to 10 days.
I'll have to work with Melinda to get you. I don't want to sit here and tell you something I haven't talked to her about, but it's forthcoming. As far as one of the challenges in that particular project that will help Bobby and Mr. DeCandia significantly is the project that Dewberry Pebble Ridge is doing, and that specifically targets the area where all the drainage is showing up and will dry the area out between Brandon Oaks and Bay Grove Road. We need the assistance of the neighborhood in requiring about 21 drainage easements. So the letters are going out today. There will be a community meeting set up at South Walton Annex next Wednesday to discuss with the Brandon Oaks homeowners that we need the drainage easements from. So hopefully that'll be a successful meeting and we can help the neighborhood and everybody in the area.
Will it still require the ditching? Even once both phases are done, will it still require the ditching, the ditches around the homes?
That's a stormwater requirement of the DEP. Okay. That is basically their water quality treatment system. Okay. It's supposed to, the system that we're proposing will help because it will help to dry the area out, which will then make the areas around the homes have the ability to possibly percolate in a shorter time period the water that is required to sit around the homes. It's supposed to all dry up within 72 hours after a rain event, per the DEP regulations.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Yes, sir. Come on up.
While he's coming, Greg, do you know what time that meeting is with the Brandon Oaks people?
Yes, ma'am. It's 5:30 to 6:30.
Great, thank you.
Hey there.
Thanks.
Yes, would you give?
Clerk's got to have it.
Yeah.
State your name and spell your
My name is Robert Rogers. I live on Bay Grove, 115. Thank y'all for having me here. I'm sure as everyone knows, we've been battling this issue with Brandon Oaks as part of since 2005 or before. I have a plan kind of that would work and kind of resembles yours. I showed on Exhibit 1 what 54 houses would cost. And 54 houses times 8,300 at the estimate would be 448,200. The drainage money in escrow was 144,000. Would leave a balance of 303,000. The county stated before they were willing to put money into it. If the county put their half in, which would be 151,000, that would leave homeowners, 54 homeowners, 10 years, at $23 a month. And if 15 of them decided they didn't want it, and you all went and inspected their septic and said, fine, your septic is good, let's put that money back in the kitty for the other ones to where it would be even less, and stipulate that the county would be inspecting their septic tanks 3 times a year, 4 times a year, and that wouldn't let them to make sure they still worked. I have a copy here, Exhibit 1A, shows what the finance was from Freeport. I just did my house. It was $2,800 down, and the rest was financed on 10 years on a $6,900 charge. Number 2, since I've only got 3 minutes, I'm going to skip a little bit, but number 2 was there was 5 stipulations the county let this development be made on. Roadways within the development remain private. The public shall, or the applicant should install northbound turning lanes. The developer will require lot purchasers to install aerobic systems. Homeowners will be connected to public sewer within a year. That didn't happen. I go to the city. The city says the county has to hook it up. I call the county. They're not in the sewer business. So it's been a battle. I've been to 7, maybe 6 county meetings or city meetings. Nothing's happened. Went to the county meetings. You know, it's who said, he said, pointing fingers. I've got pictures in here where it shows all the flooding of my house from the drainage. When this 200-year storm hit and 100-year storm hit, I had 14 inches across my yard. They said they'd come out and fix my ditches. Nothing happened. 200-year storm come out. Nothing happened. Now, they have worked a little bit on the back and got it draining better through an agriculture ditch. There's a cashier's check in there for $724,000. The developer put in escrow for this community for them 5 stipulations. 3 months later, 500 and some thousand was given back to the developer saying it was done. It wasn't done. From what I hear, they said because that 5 partial development wasn't in the folder when he checked it. But they did keep 144,000 that y'all are thinking about giving to septics, which was for drainage and swells in phase 2. With that drainage and swell money going now to septic, there's a new developer building these lots. Are this new developer building these new lots to a plan that works for everybody? Or is he going to be increasing the flooding to this community? I don't really know about that, but the paper's in there stating what the money was for, and I'm glad it's going to septic, don't get me wrong. I just want to make sure that these remaining lots that are being made are going to go to where they're beneficial for the rest of the community and the drainage.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
I appreciate your patience. I know it's hard sometimes working with government. We don't move as fast as I would like for us to, but hopefully we have a fix now that will help you get through this.
Okay, and the last 3, if you can just read on your own time.
Yes, sir.
Those are comments that came from the Freeport when I contacted them. And it's kind of interesting reading. I wasn't going to throw it up on the board for everybody to read, but it's something that I think y'all should really read.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve this plan. Are there any modifications that whoever made the motion would like to make? Or are we set to go with this?
As long as that's 90-day.
Yes, sir.
Just put in there.
Okay.
On the 12 or 14, whatever number.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The next item is request to award, approve, and authorize the chair to sign contract number 017-028. This is for the County Road 30A resurfacing project from Phase 4 of Camp Creek to US 98 East. The award would be to the lowest responsible bidder, which was C.W. Roberts, and the amount not to exceed $628,882.35. This is a TIF project, so we're proud to see those projects continue to move forward.
So moved.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Discussion from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is a request from OMB, and this is in relation to request you to approve a recreational fee resolution. Now, not to be confused with a recreational plat fee, this is dealing with our Recreation Department for the various sports program administered by the Walton County Rec Department. What we're asking you to do is support a resolution establishing a $40 fee, which is the exact amount that's being charged today and has been charged. There is one change that we would allow those that volunteer, because we're having a hard time enticing volunteers for coaches and such, would get one child paid for if they volunteer to coach. So they'd get a $40 credit toward one of their children playing sports. But we're not asking for an increase of fee or a change of the fee. This was pointed out in the clerk's audit that there was not a resolution by the BCC in support of the fees being charged by the rec department. So we're asking you to pass this resolution today to remedy that situation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any discussion from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. That's all we have from Anthony.
Mr. Tusa.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Just wanted to give you an update on where we are with the postseason beach ordinances and activity meetings that the TDC has been hosting. We have had a Destination Improvements Committee meeting where we discussed the beach ordinances, and then also a beach vendor meeting last week. We have our Beach Management Committee meeting tomorrow, and then we'll be discussing this at the TDC meeting next week. So I know a few meetings ago, probably about a month ago, we had discussed about bringing this before the BCC sometime in October, maybe the October 10th meeting. So I wanted to just ask for some direction on when you might want to host that meeting where we can discuss these beach ordinances and activities.
Do you have a date that you want to?
Well, like I said, about a month ago, we talked about possibly October 10th, a South Walton meeting, having that at 3 o'clock before the standard BCC meeting.
I have here ribbon cutting ceremony on 3/31 at 3. Is that still on? So
Okay.
we can't do it then.
Okay, that's fine.
That's going to make a long meeting. Let's do it a different day.
I mean, we wanted to get this done early, so I mean, we have October, November. I mean, we obviously don't want it, I think, to go into next year, but certainly we have plenty of time.
My problem is we do wait too long, and then we don't have time to implement and let people know.
Oh, I agree.
What's going on.
I agree.
I'll hold a special meeting if we have to, but we've got to do this in October now, to give everybody time to review the rules, because you know we'll have to bring it back to us again, and that'll take us into November. So I just feel like as soon as we can do it, the better.
What about October 11th? It's a Wednesday.
It's good for me.
Special meeting.
Is that October the 11th?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I'm fine with that.
That's the risk management conference. Some of us, or I don't know if I will, but
I won't be here.
also that's the special fundraiser at the Republican Party that night.
What about the 18th then?
Okay.
18th works for me.
Works for me.
I can do it that afternoon.
That's fine.
3 or 4 on the 18th.
So the 18th?
3.
18th at 3 o'clock?
18th.
3 o'clock, 18th. You got that, Jeff? Whoa, Jeff. You got that?
All right.
Okay, 3 o'clock, October 18th. Do we need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? Discussion from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. And that's all I have. Any questions for me? Great. Thank you.
Commissioners, the first item I have is a request to approve and authorize the chairwoman to sign a resolution authorizing expenditure of surplus bridge tax funds This is for the Bay Grove property that we purchased. You guys approved the closing documents at your last BCC meeting, and it was my oversight, and I didn't have the resolution on the last meeting, so I'd ask you to approve it at this time.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Discussion from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Commissioners, the next item I have, item number 22, is a request for approval to cancel the sale of property as identified by parcel ID number 123S20 3400000010061. This property is located on Blue Mountain Road. You'll remember it's a 3-foot wide strip of property. You guys authorized us to go out for bids in the summer. We received bids, and while working with the highest bidder, we discovered that there were some restrictions on the property related to an old case. It's 2002 CA 090. It was Sunseekers Condominium, which is a neighboring property owner, sued Walton County back in 2002, and that case created some substantial restrictions on the property. So after speaking with the highest bidder, she's requested that we cancel the sale, and I recommend it also based on that case.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Second, any other discussion? Discussion from the audience? Seeing none, oh, wait a minute. Yes, sir, come on up. That's okay.
Madam Chairman, good morning. Thank you, Madam
State your
Chairman.
name and
Good
spell
morning,
your last name, please.
My name is Tim Shuba, S-H-U-B, as in boy A. I'm here representing the Sunseekers Association, Homeowners Association, that was party to that lawsuit that Ms. Noah's referenced. In that case, the final summary judgment was that Walton County does not have the right to allow the public to use the easement in question. The easement in question is this very property, which, although the initial leg is 3 feet wide, is actually at an angle to the rest of the path. When we look at the meets and bounds, it comes out to be actually 2 feet 7 inches wide, which is too narrow for a walkover, which is what the easement was designed to facilitate, a walkover of the dunes to the beach. 3 feet is the minimum, and that's if fewer than 50 people are using it, actually based on the square footage of the two properties that would have been involved. If this sale went through, it would have been 4 feet wide between the rails. So the public can't use it. It's too narrow for anything else that would be sensible to use. So really, the property is of little value to anyone except those of us who border it, and would have substantial traffic through that walkway. So we certainly support Ms. Noah's recommendation and urge you to so resolve it.
And Commissioners, I've spoke with this gentleman and also Ms. Mackett from Sunseekers, and I will work with them to see if we can come up with some solution so everyone's aware of the restrictions on this property in the future, so the situation doesn't come up again.
Does Sunseekers use it as a way down to the beach?
No, ma'am. There's nothing constructed on the property currently.
Well, it's being used there's a utility pole on it,
okay,
and some wires. So it's actually being used as a utility easement, which we're fine with. But there's nothing else there much. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Shuba. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign.
Commissioners, at the last board meeting, based on a citizen request, you asked that I do some research on airboat regulations and how the county can go about regulating airboats. In your agenda packet, I have, I think 6 or 7 ordinances that I've been able to find from other counties in the state of Florida. I also have the Florida statutes that are applicable to airboat regulations. The state has somewhat preempted local governments in this area, specifically any regulations having to do with noise coming from any vessel. We have to follow the state's specific language in the statute, and that's statute 327.65. And then also any local ordinance that would discriminate against airboats versus other vessels has to be adopted by the board with a supermajority. So 4 of you would have to vote for those regulations. And there's also, I guess in your packet, a copy of an Attorney General opinion from 2009 that addresses a lot of the issues related to airboat regulations. From what I was able to find, especially from the other local governments who've adopted regulations, we can't do what the citizens were asking. They were asking that we shut down airboats everywhere east of the bridge in the bay. I think that that would be too broad, and we wouldn't have a justification for such a broad ordinance. However, based on what I've found, we could adopt regulations, time of operation, day of operation. Those would be the most common and enforceable regulations that could be adopted. And we could also adopt regulations as far as launch sites. So that might be something else that we could explore. I've asked Buddy and Wilmer from Public Works to just come up with a list of some launch locations that aren't close to residential areas. So that might be something that could be a solution. So I just need direction from the board if you'd like for me to continue researching this matter, or
Sid, do you have
how you'd
any
like for me to
idea
go forward.
if Dan and the neighborhood ever had their meeting to discuss this?
No, sir, I don't think that they have. I know Mr. McCurdy, I spoke with him. He's the individual that runs the airboat business, and I think he's had conversations with some individuals in the neighborhood, but I don't think that they've had a community meeting.
And that's my understanding, too, that he requested some and they didn't respond. I think we need to let you move forward with this, and let Public Works come up with some lists, and I would highly recommend that the neighborhood and Mr. McCarty get together and try to work out a plan that pleases everybody. But we're going to have to do something, so I would say we take the next step moving forward.
Okay.
Agreed.
So I can bring back a draft ordinance, and what I would suggest is time restrictions, and possibly launch location restrictions, unless you guys have any other suggestions. But I could have that draft ordinance back to you hopefully in October.
It would be nice if you met with the representative from the homeowners and Mr. McCurdy. I met
Okay.
with him at my office. He was very amenable to trying to find a different location and work, certain days. He was very willing to work. So if we could get those two heads together, that might, might give you ideas on what we could put in our ordinance.
And Sydney, idle speed, please, speed, because it talks about speed under, I know the no wake, because I don't even think an airboat doesn't even make a wake, so the no wake wouldn't even really apply. But maybe a speed at where he's close to the property owners.
Well, right. So idle speed and no wake zones are actually, those have been completely preempted by the state of Florida. So we have to have, we have to follow the state's rules as far as establishing those no wake zones or idle speed zones.
And this is, and they are considered navigable waterways, right? That's why federally this all applies. This is actually on a map saying it's a navigable waterway.
Yes,
It's a
ma'am.
federally,
but-
okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Local
I
governments used to have broad authority
Right.
to regulate these
Right.
things. However, the state has slowly, over the years, chipped that away.
What about silencers on the noise level? There's things that they can do to make it as quiet as possible. I know we might not be able to regulate that, but I believe we could ask him if he would be willing to do that. I felt like he was willing to do whatever it took to
Madam
work.
Chair,
So, yes, sir.
my understanding is he's put a muffler on the engine. What it is the prop wash that's causing the excessive noise. And I don't know of anything
Anything to
you can
do
do
that.
now that you can damper it down.
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
Sydney, I must have misunderstood, because I've got counties are given specific authority to establish certain boating restrictions areas by ordinance, including an idle speed. So if that's not section 327.46, but
Okay, I'll look into that as well.
thank you.
Okay. And Commissioners, the last item I have is item number 24. And that is a request to approve and authorize the chairwoman to sign a resolution in support of Jackson County and expressing opposition to deep injection waste disposal wells. And this is based on board direction at the last meeting.
Madam Chair, I'm going to have to recluse myself from that, and therefore I will vacate the room.
Was there some, I'm sorry.
Apologize. Someone, I think, raised her hand for public comment if it was
That's my
allowed. I
fault.
On the
apologize.
airboats.
Okay.
Can we go back? and
Yes,
then-
ma'am. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
could we
That
go
was my
back to
fault.
the airboats? I apologize, I didn't see your hand, or it's kind of hard to see back there. So was there someone that wanted to talk about the airboats? Yes, sir, come on up. We've already voted, but we will certainly entertain your ideas when we do the ordinance. You have to, sometimes you have to just wave at me.
My name is Chris Kent. I live, K-E-N-T. I live at number 10 West Shallows Drive. My neighbors, the original Wesley family, the Saltzman family, the Baylor family are on my east side. The original Judge Osborne extended family, the Powers, are on my west side. I've been there for 30 years. The Wesley Powers and et al. Have been there 30 years prior to me. I'm speaking, they had asked me to come and try to speak to this airboat issue. Very early on, I spoke to Mr. McCurdy. I was according to him, I was one of the second people who called him to complain about the noise. The conversation was pleasant. He was agreeable. I was agreeable. And the general gist of the issue was, my position, you've got the right idea, giving tours, eco-tours, etc. You just have the wrong boat. We'd love to have the tours. We'd love to have you around. No problem. It's the boat. It's the noise. He, at the end of our conversation, said, listen, I can quiet my boat. I can get my boat to a point where I'll pull in front of your bayfront houses and open it up, and you could talk above it. I don't want to get into this is way above my pay grade, but let's just for a moment, decibels here. If you're standing at I-10 and a car goes by going 65 miles an hour, you're standing right there changing your tire, God forbid. That car is creating 70 decibels. An airboat at full power is 108 decibels. Doesn't sound like that much more. 108 for the airboat at full power, 70 for a car standing next to it driving 65 miles an hour. But in scientific terms, the difference between 108 and 70 decibels is 16 times. 16 times the sound of a car standing or going by you at 25 feet away from you. We have a solid noise ordinance. I understand there are some issues with boats and noise, but we have an ordinance that says plainly audible. And all we ask is that 150 folks would like to have somebody's boat, which nobody's boat typically does this, not come into our house while our doors are closed, while our TVs are running, while our stereos are running, and be louder than all of that.
Thank you, sir. If you could finish up.
Okay. We could call the sheriff and ask for that, but we know the sheriff's doing important security stuff. We don't want to report it. So all we ask, not to drive the man out of business, all we simply want to do is have him quiet the boat. And I will add one more point. If you will look into it a little bit, whoever does the research on this, you can change prop types, you can change fan widths, and you can change the actual velocity of the fan, not only muffling the engine, but changing the velocity of the fan. This has been done in other counties, Orlando, Kissimmee, Ocala, Seminole. Other counties have dealt with this, and they have driven this decibel level down to 80 decibels successfully. So I only ask when you're looking into your research that you would look into that
And you might want to get with Mark Bro and meet with Mr. McCurdy as well. It sounds like you've got some great ideas. And I found that he was very amenable to trying to help solve this problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
for coming.
Thank you all.
Yes. now moving on to the resolution.
Yes, ma'am. So item number 24 is a request to approve and authorize the chairwoman to sign a resolution in support of Jackson County and expressing opposition to deep injection waste disposal wells. And this is based on the board's direction at the last meeting.
Any discussion?
Second.
Have a
Motion to approve? Okay, sorry.
Motion to approve the resolution for discussion. Yes, motion and a second. All right, discussion.
I know there's like good wells and bad wells. These are waste disposal wells. Are certainly some that we don't want to see in Walton County or anywhere else. So this let me make sure, is about the wastewater disposal.
Yes, it's specific to landfill wastewater. Yes, ma'am.
And I did hear that the Jackson County Commissioners and the stakeholders had a very good meeting last week. They're going to continue in 2 weeks with another meeting. I'm very optimistic. They are very optimistic that this will be solved. You know, it's just a true testimony of when people can sit down at a table and state your differences and work it out. So I'm still very optimistic that it will be worked out. So any questions, comments from the audience? Ms. Lehman, did you want to speak?
I think after 8 weeks, there's certainly consensus. It looks like this is going to move forward, and your voice will be on the record. I guess I just wanted to also thank Chair Jones in particular. It's been a long 8 weeks. You have called me at night, returned every call I've made. I am so very grateful for your responsiveness, especially while traveling. I know firsthand that's not easy to do either. And as I told you, different research and public records I was gathering around the state. I appreciate your interest in same. I also want to thank Commissioner Anderson for asking that this be ready at this meeting so there was some predictability. The reason you don't see a full room is because I think in the Defuniak Herald, people saw that clearly there were at least 3 commissioners on the record as wanting to see something done at this meeting. I did bring, because Commissioner Commander keeps asking these great questions about the science and the research, and I know you're dependent largely on Jackson County for that because there's just too much on Walton County's plate right now, and I respect that. I did a little GIS research from my old days at DEP, and we prefer to do this live, but I just took these static graphics for you. This is a graphic, obviously, of the state of Florida. The brown dots, which you can't quite make out, I apologize again, this is a static graphic. The brown dots are Class 1 wells. We talked at the last meeting about how that's basically less than 1% of all the deep injection wells in Florida, and they handle the most dangerous item. I keep hearing the word wastewater, and I just want to be clear. The vast majority of deep injection wells in Florida are for wastewater, not for leachate. It is really more proper to call this deep injection well a leachate deep injection well, not a wastewater injection well. The blue dots are Class 5 wells, deep injection wells, predominantly for ASR, which you may know as aquifer storage and recovery. And the yellow, which are the most dots, are Class 5 non-ASR, non-aquifer storage and recovery. And if you could flip to the next. One more, that one. You're reading a lot about problems right now in St. Pete and Tampa and Naples with sewage and uncapped wells and problems that are just happening with infrastructure. This is a good depiction contributing to the problem. It's certainly not the problem, but a lot of the lift stations and deep injection well issues are just commingling, basically. One more slide. I think this is the last one. That's a little farther south in Naples, Bonita Springs, which is having a huge problem with Irma as well. And the last slide. Look at this beautiful spot. This is Northwest Florida. Very sparing deep injection wells. No Class 1 injection well for leachate. Leachate is the most concentrated liquid. We're not going to know what's in the leachate unless you knew what was in the landfill. So batteries, mercury, borium, lead, known carcinogens, heavy metals. Every single item that's in leachate is directly connected to a chronic public health disease. So I thank you very much in advance. I believe the resolution will pass. I would just encourage you to, and I know that you will, stay very aware of what's going on in Jackson County. It's my belief your resolution will be the beginning of this issue, certainly not the end. Thank you. I apologize. Kelly, Kelly, Layman.
Thank you, Ms. Lehman. Anyone else? Yes, sir, come on up. And again, I want to reiterate that our delay was not in support of this. It was as a courtesy to the Jackson County Commissioners that asked us to. We didn't want to interfere with the negotiations, So at any rate, we've done it now.
Thank you. Bill Fletcher, Fletcher. I'm not clairvoyant, but I think you folks are going to do the right thing here and pass this resolution. The one thing I wanted to stress is this application, until it's withdrawn, is active, and I think they've just delayed it until March. So I think it's something we need to keep an eye on. I applaud you for doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Anyone else? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Thank you very much. Commissioner Tony Anderson, you have anything?
Madam Chair, I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Commander?
I do have one item, just can't pass it up, else.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We've been hearing a lot lately about bears.
Have a button on. We have been hearing lately about bears. As a matter of fact, I saw a local resident, young woman, took a picture on Highway 20 the other day of a mama bear and 3 cubs just crossing the road. And there was a man in, I believe, down at the south end of the county recently, his dog was attacked, and then he was attacked trying to save his dog. So in July of this year, the Freshwater Game and Fish Commission did a press release in an effort to help stop some of these bear-human contacts. And they have invited all local governments and county governments to apply for the Bear Wise funding for their communities. Bear Wise is one word, but Wise is capitalized. And I'd like for us to perhaps look into that, to see if we could get our somehow help from Waste Management and our residents. They have on their website, if you would go to their website and do what they say, you can have a bear-proof trash can. But unfortunately, a lot of us do not do that, and we end up with a bear in our trash can and trash all over the road. So I would like for admin to look into this Bear Wise and how perhaps we could get, especially in some of these vulnerable areas, Bear Wise trash cans, because when a bear finds a place that he's going to get a meal, he's going to go back to it. And at some point, I'm afraid one of our children will get hurt because they're probably not afraid of a bear. So anyway, that's just something I would like for us to look into. Maybe you could bring it back to us in a meeting or two.
Commissioner, just an update on that. We've already been in discussions with FWC, who has some funds available for that purpose. Melinda Gates attended a meeting about 2 weeks ago, and I've had her to meet with our solid waste manager, and so we'll bring something back to you. He actually just sent me an email. The FWC point of contact did on Friday, so we're moving along with that.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Nipper?
I do have one. I apologize. It was on the consent agenda. It was regarding the broadband feasibility study. Rick, would you speak with us about the dig once and see if we can get, I guess we need to get some momentum on this dig once and the conduit that we're going to put in and how we're going to move forward, or at least a little bit of a timeline or some advice as to where we should start
Sure.
going. I think it's starting to slide away.
Rick Wilson, for the record, Wilson. I work for administration department. And what Commissioner Nipper is referring to is our dig once, philosophy, principles that we're trying to implement here. And once we started looking at it and working with the broadband feasibility study, we said, look, we can kill two birds with one stone here. We can have, qualified firms come in and see what's been done other places, best practices, and implement that here. That being said, that timeline is a year away at minimum. By the time we negotiate, 6 month to 9 month period. We're asking them for 6 months. They proposed a 9 month period on the feasibility study. Public meetings, changes to the land development code, all that takes a lot of time. So, if you would like, Commissioner, we can work in-house. We have very competent engineers and planning staff that can help design what this needs to be for our county. We are unique to other places like San Francisco and Chattanooga who have done these things, but it doesn't mean that we can't get something done that will be adequate for our area, make our commissioners happy, and provide the services needed for our residents in the future. So, if your direction is to not do that with the broadband feasibility study, we'd be more than happy to follow that direction if that's what it is.
I agree with Commissioner Nipper. We need to speed this along, no matter what it takes. So if that's not part of the study, I don't know. That's up to y'all. But I mean, I'm kind of tired of waiting.
I think in-house would work. I think we can all come together in-house. I know the Highway 90 project, one of the things that we did put in there is I think you said the bundling of the conduit. That's one of them with the water sewer that I'd request to be put in there also when the project comes forward. But I'd be more than happy to work in-house.
Well, I think between Kristen Schell and Matt Carpenter and myself and some of our other very qualified staff, we can bring something to you to at least look at and say, let's do this and not this, or this looks good, let's move forward.
Because the timing right now regarding like the development order and those kind of things, the timing.
A lot of development can
essence
take
right
place
now.
in a year's time, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapman.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners, my item that I had up here was to move forward with retaining a design firm for the park that we just purchased at Bay Grove and 331, that land there. I would like to modify that and have it direct our engineering staff to work on the design of that park. We could probably save a significant amount of money by doing it in-house, then putting it out for bid and spending up to $200,000. We could use that in the park. So that's what I'm requesting, that we move forward with, and I'll make it in the form of a motion, move forward with allowing or directing the Public Works to come up with a design of that park, along with cost estimates, to bring back at a future date, hopefully within the next 60 days.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Would that include a building? Would we have enough money to do some kind of, I know we're talking about pavilion, I know we're talking about bathrooms, but up at Paxton, there's a wonderful building over Lake Jackson that people use it for events. We really don't have much down that way. I don't know if we have enough money, but that's just an idea I wanted to throw out.
Maybe it would be prudent that the engineers meet with each one of us and get our ideas, and then see if they can conglomerate them together.
Well, you know, my concern about a building is you take up a lot of real estate out there to put it in, because once you put the building in, you got to put the parking in to go along with the square footage that's in that particular building. And it's going to take away from that area down there. If you look at it, it is an oak hammock, a live oak hammock.
It's beautiful.
And it's beautiful down in there. And my concern is protecting those trees. So if we go out there and start opening up too much of it, we could destroy some of the ambiance that's down there. And I've committed to not tearing them trees out just to make it whatever. So I would, maybe we just, if you want them to come around and talk to each one of us, that's well and good. You all have ideas of how you want to maybe put in there, what to put in there. But at least let's move forward with this thing. It took us a long time to finally get it. so we need to move forward and put it to use. I've heard a lot of comments from people in the Freeport area that will utilize that particular area, and they're just very happy that we're moving forward, and so we need to keep this momentum going also.
Definitely boat slips, restroom, pavilions, so we'll just, yeah. Yes, sir, come on up.
You know, it's amazing what a little cleanup will do.
Oh, God, it's beautiful down there.
You know, it is absolutely beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Right now.
Mr. Kramer?
Good morning again. David Kramer, Kramer. Since you have such a wide variety of experts in this county, it might be an excellent opportunity to use all the landscape designers, et cetera, that we have on a lot of the boards and all kinds of professionals that we have on our boards. So my suggestion would be to either one of two things, do a contest for design in a timely pace, or just do a workshop where you get all the expertise you can for free. And if you want to hurry it along, just make that workshop right away. Thank you.
David, so you'll know, I think the original pitch on this thing here, and agreement I have with a lot of people that in the area, is to come up with a preliminary design and then workshop it with the public to see if there's anything they may want to add, take away, or whatever, before we get to a final design. But we got to get that preliminary first.
Yeah, anything you want to do is great. I'm glad that you did this. I mean, I applaud you, each individually and collectively. That is a great piece of property for us to have as a park. And as Bill said, save those trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Anything else? That's all?
That's it.
Okay, under my name, I'm continuing with my,
Did I make a motion, make that in the form of a motion, or is it just direction?
vote.
Did.
Okay, all in
Huh?
favor?
Well, no vote on it yet?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you.
Under my name, we're continuing with our community meetings. We had one in Mossy Head last week. We had a very, very good attendance. One thing that did come out, and I want to, pass on when we get ideas, the citizens there, and I've heard it from Paxton as well, want to look at those signs coming into Walden County. I think they say something like, "Welcome to Walden County," and it stresses the beaches. And they say, the beaches are some 40 miles away. So I was wondering if we could get Public Works to look at those signs and see if we could reword them, or because I do hear that quite often, and I know probably Commissioner Nipper does too.
Well,
So-
Larry got a phone call this weekend, and we are looking at that.
Oh,
Thank you
great,
for bringing
great.
that up.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is
we
your
are look-
district,
we
so
are.
thank you
Well,
very much.
I'm suggesting Mossy Head, Paxton, and
It'll be,
Highway 20.
it's highway, there's one on 20 coming in, and there's also one on 81 north at Holmes County line.
I can see those, and I think there was a very nice blurb. Abby, what was the suggestion? I thought it's just a suggestion, we could talk about it, but I thought the way you worded it was very nice.
Lou suggested that we say, "Welcome to Walton County, enjoy our farmlands and beaches."
I think that's perfect for the north end.
Yep, it would bring unity instead of division, I agree. And then we are having our next business and community get-together next Tuesday from 4 to 6 at the Smiles Building on Highway 98. Sissy Proctor, who is the Director of Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, will be our guest speaker. We're going to have a roundtable meeting. Actually, I believe Commissioner Anderson's going to serve on it. We've asked the sheriff to serve on it, Bonnie McQuiston, and then the real estate, I can't remember her name, I apologize. So we're having realtors come together, the building industry, and invited guests from the anyone from the community. It's open. It's a public meeting. So we hope to see you there.
Did you say Tuesday or Wednesday?
It's going to be Tuesday from 4 to 6, October 3rd, and we're working this around the Gulf Power Symposium that starts on Sunday down there. So that's all I have. If we could take a break right now, and then we'll come back and hear the citizen request and other public comments. 10-minute break. Reynolds Henderson, would you come up, please?
I'm Reynolds Henderson. I'm the president of Main Street Definiak Springs, Inc., which is 501c3. It's part of the, one of the newly approved Florida Main Streets. We were approved in mid-August, and Bruce Naylor, who's the vice president, he attended the conference with me. And there's approximately 50 Florida Main Streets, and the excitement around these and what they do for downtowns and small rural downtowns across Florida and the United States, which there's a Main Street program that's all across the United States, is phenomenal as far as revitalization. So anyway, we're excited. We're excited to be here, and we have this request for a third of the estimated budget. Bruce just gave out some packets showing the draft budget, which has not been approved by our board. It's a budget which has $33,333 hopeful contribution from Walton County BCC. And anyway, we're here to answer any questions and speak to you about anything you may have regarding the Main Street program. There's surrounding communities like Crestview, Chipley. I mean, there's you name it. They're very successful programs. Apalachicola. You look at what's going on with Pensacola downtown. It's. I hope you guys can see the benefit and the return of investing in downtown Definiak Springs.
Bruce,
Commissioners, if I may take a moment.
take a moment?
I know. You know me, Sarah. But my name is Bruce Naylor. I own Naylor Realty. I'm the vice president of our new Main Street organization. And one of the reasons why I got involved in the Main Street operation, thought it'd be a great organization for Definiak Springs, is as a real estate broker and as one of the people who meet incoming residents and businesses, one of the first questions I'm asked is, do we have a master plan, a master program? And up until this point, I really didn't have an answer. I took a look at the Main Street program. It's a national program. It's a state-recognized program, and it's a proven history of success when it comes to maintaining our historical integrity and building economic stability. If you look at I-10, just look at the communities across the United States, then you look at the diamond that Definiak Springs is. We have 4 landing at 331. The growth in North Walton County is exceptional. We have universities are going to be building. More people are coming in. And we think it's vital that we have a program that maintains and can grow our historic downtown Definiak Springs. There are 50 Main Street programs right now in the state of Florida, and there are 1,400 in the United States. And the beauty of this Main Street program is that is a resource that we can utilize for technical help, for grant writing, and for marketing of Main Street, just like Definiak. And what's cool is we can access these different community Main Street programs if we have a program we want to do. And I am sure that in the 1,400 Main Street programs in the United States and the 50 programs in Florida, whatever program we may be wanting to do, they've already done it. So we can access that kind of information, budgeting, fundraising necessary to really make downtown Definiak even stronger, even better, and more applicable for the growth that's coming our way. So very excited about it. We hope you are, and appreciate your support, and we're asking for that today.
Bruce, I'd first like to thank you for coming Thursday night and speaking to the DBPA, the Definiak Business and Professional Association. We had a good crowd.
Yes.
And
Great.
this program affects almost all of them's business life, whether they're on Baldwin Avenue or not. I appreciate you giving your presentation, and you really weren't that long-winded.
Thank you.
I'm proud
I know.
of you.
Well, I've got a clock there in front of me.
With that being said, I asked y'all the last time you came. I cannot spend county money without a plan on what you're going to do and a plan for your expenses, and you have presented that to me. I noticed that you're $166 short down at the bottom.
Well, actually, that's in excess. This is all just an
Was it
estimate,
excess?
but if it had parentheses around it, it would be deficiency. But
I was going to ask you. Yeah,
You just ruined
You're
that
in.
one,
take it. We'll take it.
Right. I was going to ask you for that, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You just ruined that one, Reynolds. I was going to give you
But,
$100.
okay, well, I'll follow up on that commitment. Thanks.
But I do appreciate that you doing what we asked you to do.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I will make the motion that we support the, are you asking for just this year's upcoming budget year or for all 3 years?
Well, the city of Definiak, they approved 3 years of this, and we would love 3 years. But if you guys want to see us prove ourselves, we're happy to come back next year and the year after if we're successful. Either way, whatever, we just really want this thing to be successful, and so whatever process you guys want us to go through, we're happy to go through.
I'll make the motion that we support the Main Street program, and if we get a second, then if you want to discuss whether we want to do
I'll
one or
second
three.
for discussion.
For discussion, yes.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
I have two. And looking at your executive director salary, $45,000, does that include any matching funds, such as Social Security, et cetera?
No, sir, it doesn't. We just guesstimated on benefits. I mean, really, I'd love to pay somebody way more than this, but we even thought about when we didn't have the commitment from the VCC, we were trying to dial it down, and it was just very, very, very slim pickings on who you can get at $30,000 a year with no benefits. So we don't have any match or anything right now. I'd love to get enough funding over time. We're getting a lot of contributions. It depends on kind of where our money situation is as to how we can progress with benefits. We definitely want to provide some portion of health in this, but we can't even pay 100% of health right now the way the budget looks. So.
Okay. Second question is, and it was something I aired initially when this was brought up. Reynolds, I know you own several properties along Main Street. Bruce, you probably own the rest of them. But my question is, that property owner that owns a portion that is along Main Street that is just doesn't have a lot of money left over at the end of the day, how are you going to get him convinced or her convinced that they need to do this beautification and all that?
That is what Main Street is all about, Bill, because Main Street, those 50 cities, those 1,400 cities across the United States have set a pattern as a resource where we can access grants, funds, fundraising, and then ultimately, through our success, motivate that small businessman to participate, and we are there to help him raise the funds necessary.
Okay. He's got a question.
Yeah.
Bill, if you look at your handout, this is Erin Glenn. I'm the newest board member. I also own a piece of property. It is not in the historic business or the district. I just bought the old post office with my sister and my brother-in-law, and we're going to be renovating that. But one of our objectives is a beautification plan, and we are planning to use part of our resources to help business owners in the district with these renovation costs to get them on board, and also use our resources for grant writing to help identify additional financial sources.
Okay.
Let me be clear, though, Bill. It's limited as to when you're an individual who owns a space. Just say you lease to you're a landlord. You own the building. You cannot get a lot of grant funding that's public money. You cannot get that. They don't want to just give the owner money to redo their facade. It's one grant, just to give you an example, is the 20% tax credit grant, which is a long, laborious process. We want to try to make the process easier. You get 20% federal tax credit if you enhance and preserve in its original state a building you have, which would which would be perfect. That would fit into exactly what we're trying to do. But we're trying to make the process easy. It's going to be a slow process. However, we're hoping that when people see what's going to happen, happening to these buildings, and I've already painted where the Main Street office is going to go on Baldwin if you haven't seen it yet. But you should go down and check it out, please. It looks better. Now, it's not where it's going to be in the end, but at least it gives people a springboard to see the direction we're going, and we want to get people engaged. How can we help you? How can we help your building look better to help bring in more tenants who are going to have retail businesses, the ice cream shop, the coffee shop, and we're going to get an inventory of what we have and how can we enhance what we have and bring in and supplement those tenants that we need. But in the end, it's not, I don't want to deceive anybody. You can't use public funds to make your real estate more valuable. It has to be a participation that the owner's willing to do, and we're just hoping we can get owners to buy into this.
Okay. Reynolds and staff, we have our final budget hearing tonight.
Yeah.
So this request is coming outside the budget cycle. It's also not in the budget. So to staff, where will this 33, if we vote to support it, come from?
I see Melissa
Out of
coming up.
contingency? Come up there, Miss Finance Director.
Since we've already advertised, we cannot raise the budget by this amount, so it would have to just be pulled out of next year's contingency funds.
Okay. Suggestion, gentlemen, ladies. Next year, I would strongly urge that you start talking to that lady there around March or April at the latest of next year. And two, I've been to some of these locations, cities, vacation and what have you, and seen what y'all are trying to accomplish. And it's outstanding. I agree with it. But I want to see this thing work. And I think, Bruce, you mentioned early on, a year, you prefer 3, but if maybe a year and come back and let's see what the progress looks like. Now, that's just Bill's take. I'm not speaking for the entire board.
I agree, since it's not in our budget, and as I agree with Commissioner Chapman, please get with Melissa in plenty of time. She's a whiz with numbers, but I think it's a worthwhile project. I grew up here, and downtown Defuniak used to be bustling all the time, but especially on Saturday. There were people coming in from all over the county. They had to build extra parking on the south side by the train station because there just wasn't enough place to park. Now, you can park sideways in those things, and never bother anybody. So, anything we can do to increase the business down there, the traffic, I think is a good idea. Those are really historical buildings. So I think we need to take that in consideration whenever y'all come up with some type of design. But I think it's a worthwhile project, and I support it.
Could I add one more thing, and then I promise I'll hush Bill?
You didn't say a word.
I didn't say nothing. I can read his looks. I would like, I notice that most of the people on your board are young people that have moved here recently, except for old Bruce over there. But even Bruce, is not that old. I would love for y'all to talk to people like J.W. Adkisson, some of the really older people in this community who have been here, 60, 70, 80 plus years, and can tell you the history of this community, can tell you what used to be uptown. I mean, when I moved here, I remember Christo's on the corner. So that can give you a perspective, because I know that hopefully you want to join the old with the new.
Absolutely.
You know, and the Walton County Heritage Association, for instance, is supporters, and we plan on accessing individuals just like what you're talking about, Sarah. Absolutely.
But people, I mean, like JW, God, what a resource if you just sat down and talked to him.
Absolutely.
You know, so I
And
urge you to.
We will invite him to our board meetings in any way we can engage. If there's a board slot available and someone like that would be willing to put their name in the hat and apply, I'm sure we would love to have someone like that on. And that's a huge part of this whole thing. So, we'll make sure that we get a committee that seeks out these people, and we'll probably ask you and Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Jones and anybody else who did you grow up here, Commissioner Chapman. If anybody who grew up in Defeniak Springs, Larry. People, we need this help. We're not, this is something that's going to be community-wide. So.
And you may have to shape your committee meetings and that sort of thing around their schedule.
Absolutely.
Because they don't stay up as late as they used to, and maybe not come to work as early. But I think they're a valuable resource I'd like to see you tap.
Erin, what are your plans for the post office? I'm just curious.
We're curious too, just kidding. We are going through the rezoning process with the city right now for mixed use. We'll actually be the first building to get that designation. But we are planning to put professional office space in the basement, probably some lawyers who frequent the county courthouse quite a bit. And then we're going to hold a number of community events in the old lobby. So we are planning to do a Christmas event this year and invite everyone in the community. There will be a Santa Claus. Kids can send letters to the North Pole, but we've got to figure out how to get to Mom and Dad. And we're going to do an event for the fire department and the police department locally. So our goal really is to restore the post office to a central place in the community in historic Defeniak Springs.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
And I'm going to live there.
I used to visit there with my granddaddy. We would go, early on. I remember, I'm like Commissioner Commander, I remember Christo's, but I also remember Service Drugstore and the fountain they had.
Oh,
So
yes,
I'm even going back. I think I remember that now. I might remember just the stories of it. But
Fisher's
yes.
had a fountain.
Yeah, I remember those days. Those were good days. So
Oh, it's amazing. The post office boxes still have everyone's names on the back. So we are restoring and, bringing back this building to its old glory. It's magnificent.
Wow.
Thank
Wow,
you very
thank
much
you.
for helping my community.
We're excited. And too, just to reiterate what Reynolds and Bruce were saying, we're stepping up to provide leadership to our community, but this is a community effort, and it is all about collaboration and building on the rich history of Defeniak Springs, which means consulting with, collaborating with both the existing organizations and the people who have been living there and have unbelievable pride, which strikes me every day when I'm getting out and meeting people. So it is an absolutely incredible gem of a town, and we really do want to see it thrive, and we want to work and involve everyone in this process.
Wow. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Mr. Fletcher?
Bill Fletcher, Fletcher. I think this is just a monumental thing that these folks have done, but I've been hearing some negative feedback that if you do it for Defeniak Springs, you have to do it for others. Well, if these others can accomplish what these guys have accomplished, then I would have no problem with that either. I wanted to use this occasion to remind you, I think everyone here is familiar with the study the ISP group did about 4 years ago. One of the things that we suggested was look at a bed tax in North Walton. And I believe at the time the numbers were over $200,000 that you would be raising. And I think that's dramatically more at this point in time. And of course, we're going to have more hotels coming, I believe, in the next year or two. But that would be a perfect place for these monies to go to, something like the Main Street project. Also wanted to comment on Commissioner Jones' sign welcoming you to Walton County. I think it would be ideal to have welcome to historic Defeniak Springs and Walton County beaches. Thank you.
It's a great idea. Great. Okay.
Freeport's historic.
Lee Moore?
Well, welcome to historic Walton County.
If I can talk without chattering my teeth. Thank you, Commissioners. Lee Moore, M-O-O-R-E. And I am just representing myself here, but I happen to know that my employer is also very supportive of improving the north end of the county and Defeniak Springs as well. So I know I'm always up here talking about projects and needs in the South End. And that's because I live in the South End, my job's in the South End, my nonprofit work is in the South End, but it certainly doesn't mean that I don't care about the rest of the county. I do. I agree with everything that's been said. I think that Defuniak Springs, as well as a lot of other areas in Walton County, is a gem, and I think this is a great program. I think one of the best investments counties can make is to invest in their municipalities within their county. It's a win-win for everybody. I want to thank these guys for putting in the work, because I know it takes a lot of work. And Bill mentioned the negative feedback. You guys that have worked with me probably know that I hear a lot of that on a lot of the things I work on. I would say to everybody, put the blinders on, put your earplugs in, ignore the negative feedback, because there's nothing negative about this project. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, Commissioner Commander, would you restate your motion? Was it for 1 year or 3 years?
Well, I was going to let y'all decide that. I think from what I've heard from at least 2 commissioners, that maybe 1 year, and then them work with our finance department. So I'll amend my motion to say to support this project this year, and ask them to come back to us next year budget cycle, and bring it to us during the budget cycle.
Okay.
Do we need to put in that motion that the money would come from the contingency fund? Or is it
This year?
necessary to say that?
No, Melissa says no.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
She'll find the money.
I'll modify my second, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And I know Commissioner Commander and I have already donated, so if you
As
haven't,
have I.
Commissioner
And,
Anderson
and
stepped up.
Commissioner Nipper and Commissioner Anderson. So
No
you know, we've
pressure,
got some
no-
good-
no
thank you.
When you come to the valley, I'll be glad to have you.
I'll see you at your office, Bill. And I got your commitment today. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all.
Very much. Public comments. Any other public comments on anything? Seeing none, we will move right on to Matt Carpenter with planning.
Commissioners, Matt Carpenter from the Planning Department. First item we have is item number 27, and this is a request to amend the Land Development Code to establish tree protection requirements and to schedule staff-level public workshops regarding the proposed amendment. With a little background, Commissioners, on June 12th, the Planning Commission reaffirmed and recommended retaining the policy in the existing comprehensive plan that authorizes the creation of land development code regulations to protect heritage or other landmark trees. On the 12th of this month, this board also reaffirmed that particular policy. And this would give us an opportunity to meet with the public and those interested portions of our constituency that are knowledgeable and interested in promoting heritage trees and preserving those kinds of things, to give us the best possible opportunity to bring back the right language for y'all to consider for the Land Development Code to implement this comprehensive plan policy. We have protection for trees in 2 locations presently in Walton County. The city of Defuniak Springs is a Tree City USA where they have some fairly extensive tree protections. In the Point Washington Neighborhood Plan, we incorporated some level of tree protection for heritage trees, and those being southern magnolia, longleaf pine, and the live oak that are native to our area. And in that particular location, that protection is extended to those species of trees that are 18 inches at breast height in diameter. But any particular regulation obviously would have to meet the approval of this particular board, but we'd like the opportunity to bring you back something to consider.
There will be some exceptions in there for
Yes, sir.
agriculture, silviculture, etc.
Yes, sir.
Well, also for commercial use too. I mean, just for example, you buy a piece of property and you want to put in the Dairy Queen at Freeport. They're getting a Dairy Queen and a McDonald's. And as I was coming up today, I noticed, there's very few parcels that don't have live oak trees on them. So I think we need to be real careful about this. Not that I'm wanting to cut every tree down. I don't. And just like the Bay property, I want as few of those trees cut as possible. But Commissioner Nipper has an airport. She couldn't have built that airport if we had, these tree regulations without some exceptions into them. So I it's not that I'm against this. It's just the fact that the next big growth area is north of the Bay, and I'm worried, and I'm anxious to see your proposal, but I just don't want to stunt the growth in the north end of the county. We've got Commissioner Nipper's been working extremely hard, and I applaud her for that, to get workforce housing. And, is this going to affect that?
I think almost every ordinance I've read has got provision for commercial. I mean, there's some give and take. Am I right? And from what I understand, Leon County or Tallahassee has one of one of the strictest. But I know we have to work around commercial. I mean, I'm thinking that's an understanding.
That's my concern.
There's an understanding.
And Commissioner, specifically to your point, this is not an effort that we believe would stifle development at all. Okay. This would be a companion to good development.
Yeah.
And there would be exceptions for locations of these trees on parcels that would impact development, building a house, building a business, or those kinds of things, and we'll certainly consider those kinds of exceptions.
That's my only concern, and I mean, everything I'm reading is from all the studies saying north of the Bay is going to explode, and I don't want some clean company, environmentally sound company, to come in here and not be able to build a plant to hire 200 people or so and can't get it done because we can't cut some trees or something.
And yes, sir, this would be in the Land Development Code, so certainly any kind of hardship would be available through a variance to the Board of Adjustments if it didn't qualify for an exception that we might propose for your consideration.
Okay.
What I think I'm hearing is common sense and no over-regulation. Just find a happy medium of doing the right thing. So, any other comments? Comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Come on up. State your name and spell your last name, please.
My name is Dr. Alan French, French, just like the language, the toast, and the mustard. Thank y'all for letting me speak for a minute. I'm the executive director of Trees on the Coast. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and our entire goal is to beautify our area with planting of trees, preservation of trees, which I see up here, pride, preservation, and conservation, and educating the public on the importance of trees. In my previous life, I was in Alpharetta, Georgia, which during the 90s and 2000s was probably one of the fastest growing communities in America. And I helped craft a tree protection ordinance there, and it absolutely did not stifle development whatsoever. What it did was, as an example, if a developer wanted to come in and clear cut a piece of property, which if you ask any of our fellow citizens, they can't stand clear cutting, the developer was asked to maybe make some amends on the way they designed their property. And also, there was a mitigation fund that the developers, if they couldn't replace the trees they were taking down, they would put money into this fund, and then the city, in that case, not the county, would take that money and plant trees on public thoroughfares. So it's a great thing. We wholeheartedly support this language. And again, please, I hear your concerns about, I've been through it. I mean, I'm happy to help with it, but it will not stifle development. It just makes for better development and allows the county to control it a little bit without just having clear swaths of land just wiped out and then no trees replaced. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. French, I would like to ask you, when they do have workshops, please make sure you attend those, okay? Because we want your input.
I'm happy to. I love trees. We love trees, and we just want our community to be more beautiful. And if you do it intelligently, then you end up with a more beautiful community, and everybody's more proud of it. Property values are higher, all the good things with trees. So I'll be happy to attend.
We have one more comment. Come on up.
Lee Moore again, speaking representing Howard Group and the Scenic Corridor Foundation. We both feel exactly the same way. I do just want to encourage you to keep this process moving forward. This is a whole page of the benefits of trees. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through them all. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that it's more than just aesthetics. The aesthetics of it is critically important. But trees do everything from buffering noise, which we have some issues with, to assisting with drainage and runoff, which we also have some issues with, to increasing or improving the business environment. They really, really do. There are studies that have been shown that they do that. They slow traffic if they're on the roadways. And so we are just very much in support of this. And it's not about hurting development in any way. It's about leaving the trees that you don't need to take out and taking out the ones that you do. And that can be done. Developers can do it at very little, if any, additional cost to themselves, and home builders as well. So we really appreciate that the county is looking at this and hope that it will continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lee, I just want to thank you. This is 2 times you've been up here and you hadn't asked for money.
I know it. I know it. I'm doing well today. But just wait till next meeting.
I know.
She's going to get you after the meeting, Commissioner Anderson. Okay, so you have direction just to move forward, I've seen.
Do we need a motion on that, or?
Do we need a motion, Sid?
Yes.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do we have a second to move forward?
Second to move forward.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like so.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item, before we move into our quasi-judicial items, the Black Creek at Northwest Florida large-scale amendment, we're going to ask you to continue this to October 10th and allow us to correct an advertising deficiency.
October 10th, you said?
October 10th, that would be at the South Walton Annex on or after 4 p.m.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any other comments?
Let me ask just for clarity.
Yeah.
Would continue be the appropriate motion since the advertisement was deficient? I mean, we need to perhaps table it and then re-advertise?
Right, I think probably staff's already advertised it for October.
We've already placed the re-advertising, and it was properly advertised in the text advertising. It was the quarter-page ad, showed the wrong location of
Okay,
today's
I just want to
meeting.
make sure we did the right thing. So
Right.
continue it would be appropriate? Okay.
We have a motion and a second to continue. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like so.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next 2 items are quasi-judicial.
Okay, anyone who anticipates testifying on any of the items left before the board, if you would stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide to this board will be the truth? Okay, whenever you come forward, if you would just state your full name and state that you've been sworn in. Have any commissioners have any ex parte communications on either of these 2 items?
I have not.
I don't think so.
Okay, so seeing none, we're ready to proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First item on our agenda is the Surf Song Estates plat. This is a request to approve by final plat. It's been reviewed by Tim Brown. JP Engineering submitted on behalf of Prime Investments of Fort Walton Beach. They're requesting to plat 4 residential lots on approximately 0.55 acres with a future land use of neighborhood infill. This development was previously approved by development order, a major development order. It's located at the end of Surf Song Lane on the north side of Surf Song Lane on the north side of Surf Song condominiums and identified by the parcel number in your package.
I think you should repeat that.
I don't know that I can. It's a tongue twister. Incidentally, the infrastructure has been completed on this particular project, so we have no surety that's required.
We have any?
Do we have anyone from the audience that wants to speak? Seeing none,
I have a question. Matt, I see this one's, it's allowed to be 2 stories in height, and just so I understand, the parking spaces it says are drawn here are just for illustration. So when someone comes to pull a permit, are there beds, the number of bedrooms predicated on how many parking spaces? Is that actually?
Yes, ma'am.
It is?
Yes, ma'am. The parking spaces typically are 1 space less than the number of bedrooms.
Gotcha.
If it's
Okay,
a
and
3-bedroom, it would have 2 parking spaces. If it's a 5-bedroom, it would have 4.
It's taken into consideration at that time when the home.
Yes, ma'am, and we confirm that when they apply for the building permit floodplain review
All right, thank you.
application.
Thank you.
do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any other questions, discussion from the commission, from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is the South Walton Fire District Training Center. Request to approve by final order. It's been reviewed by Bob Barante. It's a major development order application submitted by Connie and Lewicker on behalf of the South Walton Fire District. They're requesting to approve to construct a fire truck maintenance facility and a training area along with 17,980 square feet of office and storage space on approximately 9.6 acres at their existing location at 911 North County Highway 393, and it's already has a future land use of institutional. The applicant is here, and they may want to describe their project in more detail.
Would the applicant come forth? Come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mark Anderson, A-N-D-E-R-S-O-N. I'm an Assistant Chief with the South Walton Fire District. I've been project manager for this for going on 10 years now. So we're very excited to bring forward a training facility and as well as a fleet and logistics maintenance facility on our existing property. Most of you, I think, have entertained some tours and anybody to come by and see our progress on the project. This project is going to create a 4-story training tower, fleet maintenance facility where we can work on our vehicles, train our men and women, and provide the quality service that you've come to expect and deserve. I entertain any questions that you have of me.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Anderson? Captain Anderson, I believe.
Hang on a minute. One thing I always ask about, Chief, is stormwater.
Yes, sir. We've worked very closely with our engineers to create retention, which are 2 very large retention areas between our existing property and this project on the 10-acre parcel. It's right in the center of our property, north and south of the driveway.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none,
Make a motion to approve.
have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
David.
Yes, sir. Yes, come on up. Mr. Kramer. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
David Kramer for the record, K-R-A-M-E-R. I'm one of the notified owners. It's within 300 feet of this property. In fact, I share a 1,300-foot border with this property. In about 2003, 2004, this austere body, not necessarily all the people up there, decided to change my property, or approved to change my property to Coastal Center, which is bordering along this primarily institutional but also a light industrial use by any other terms. My property is primarily residential in its nature for development Coastal Center, and that's not my opinion, but that's what the comprehensive plan and the land development code call it. So I have some concerns regarding 3 things. One would be the time of operation with this property, because the people who are looking to buy my property, D.R. Horton Homes has entertained ideas, and and another apartment building complex has looked to see that property. My property is on the corner of Churchill Bayou, the four-way stop there, and 393, immediately to the north of this property. So it's basically the hours of operation. They want to be open until 10 p.m. I'd ask the board to bring that back to 9 p.m. I think that any nighttime training, given that the equipment might be equated to something like a lawnmower running at night, because they have the opportunity to use the jaws of life and fire engines running and other equipment like that. I think that 9 p.m. Adjacent to a residential land use is probably more than adequate. Secondly, whether or not the property is going to be fenced on the north side of the development to buffer against any future residential development. And let's see, third thing would be the lighting. We wanted to find out that ask engineering that the lighting program, if you're familiar with the site that's developed by the fire department, they have a communications tower on it. And a communications tower is probably 100, 110 feet in height, and consequently has flashing lights on it. Well, those flashing lights are shielded from the bottom so nobody sees them and in the neighborhood. And that's a great thing, except in the winter when the ceiling comes down or we had a fog come in. The entire neighborhood flashes all night long because there's a low ceiling and refracted light. And nothing we can do about that. I mean, we're taking all the necessary precautions. We just ask that the building tower for the training facility that's at 48 feet be shielded, that the light be shielded, any flashing lights that are on top of it also be shielded, primarily to the south, so that, I mean, from the north, so that it wouldn't be offensive to future residential development if D.R. Horton or the apartment complex would want to come in. So I'd ask that the fire department address those three things, the district, excuse me, address those three things. That'd be the lighting, the fencing if possible, and whatever I brought up first. Thank you.
9 p.m.
Ma'am?
9 p.m.
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes, come on up, Cliff.
Mr. Kramer brought me his concerns last Monday, actually, and I emailed him the photometrics of our lighting plan. Also the specs on the flashing light on the top of our training tower. It is shielded from the bottom. I'll go back. This is actually our second development order on the same project. In our first one, we addressed Mr. Kramer's concerns about night drills. We don't do them that often, but we do them. We operate in many different environments and time of day. So we train at night, but it's not a frequent event. In our first development order, we addressed that by putting into the development order that we would not train past 10 o'clock unless we would notify our neighbors. We strive to be good neighbors, and we maintain that. If there are any issues, please contact us. But as it stands right now, we haven't had any complaints of the training that we do. We maintain a ISO Class 3, which requires a lot of training in any of our five locations. We in the years that we have been doing this, we try to be good neighbors.
Can I ask, give me a guesstimate of how many times a year you do night training?
Ma'am?
How many times a year do you do night training?
We do night training. We are required to do 4 hours of night training a year, and we employ 100 different members. So I'm going to guesstimate. We try to do that in the fall when the nighttime comes quicker, so we can get our folks rested and recuperate. So
4 times, 5 times? I'm not going to hold you to it and shoot you.
I would say a dozen times or better.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cliff Nauer, Knauer. I am the adjacent landowner. I've owned the property and been next door neighbor to the fire station since 2007. I've got a 7,000 square foot commercial building, and my engineering firm is located next door. It's my property personally, and have never had a problem with the fire department. in any way, shape, or form. I hate it that it's taken them 10 years to get their training facility completed. I would never in a million years ask that they be restricted to any time frame for their training. 24/7 is the time frame they should be allowed to train on their property. If, God forbid, they ever have to get in a window to save my kids, I want them to train whenever they want to train, day or night. And so I support their efforts. I support their project. They can use my property for a lay-down yard to store materials or do whatever they need to do. And I would really, really hate you guys to limit their operating times based on one comment from an adjacent landowner who may or may not sell his property for a residential development. That's crazy. And so I support their project 100%. I'm also a drummer in a band and been playing drums for 7-10 years next to them. Never had a problem, ever. And so I support them 100%. Thank you.
Let me ask you, Cliff, one more. Are you agreeable, say, to the fencing and to the lighting, which they already said that they're going to address?
They don't need to fence anything for me.
Okay.
I'd prefer they don't fence anything. There's no fence in between our property now. I don't need a fence. And their lighting doesn't bother anybody.
That's
So
why I'm asking the question.
yeah, light it up and train 24/7. That's what I would ask. Thanks.
Any other comments?
One last thing on that.
Did you, in the black shirt, did you want to say something?
Yes.
State
You can say it, I just told it. You can see on the
Let's state your
shading.
name first.
I'm John Henderson. I'm here with Conley and Wicker Engineers. And you can see along the north property line some of the shaded areas. Those are wetlands. There's already been a permit to fill the wetlands that were filled back years ago when they did the first phase. But to put a fence along the north property line, we'd need another dredge and fill permit. So it'd be kind of difficult to do that. And they probably wouldn't allow another one on the same property.
All right, thank you.
Outside of our wetland areas, we do plan to fence in our training facility to make sure that nobody wanders on it and gets injured.
Commissioners, Matt Kirkman for the Planning Department. Based on the dimension plan, it appears that constructed improvements on this training facility will be approximately 100 feet south of Mr. Kramer's property line. And based on the lighting plan contained in your package, the projected amount of light at the property line will be not more than 1/10 of 1 foot candle. In this particular case, up to 10 would be allowed.
Thank you. Yes, well, you've already spoken one time. I'm not allowed. Second time, am I? No. Okay, I believe we're ready to make a motion and vote now.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign.
Thank you, Commissioners. That is the end of our agenda today.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
No,
For executive session.
Except for executive session. Yeah.
Recess 3 minutes while everybody gets out, and then move on to executive session. I was trying to get out
Jumped
there.
on that one, didn't